Thanks so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. Where are you at actually right now? Where are you based?
I'm based in New York City. I'm currently at WeWork. Really big fan of their all access pass. Gets me access to all the WeWorks around the world, and been doing a lot of traveling as of late, meeting up with Metaverse HQ peeps. You know how the Metaverse is, quite decentralized on the internet, but there are real people behind these PFPs. You and I, right? Your Moonbird, Mayazuki, and it's fun to meet them from time to time.
Exactly, man. And this is something definitely I want to get into down the road. But man, I would be super excited to learn about just overall journey of yours when it comes to Web3.
Even though I was in the crypto scene in 2017, 18, with my startup at the time, Artifacts Digital, we provided marketing services, video production services for companies that were looking to go ICO, right? So helping activate on a marketing front, I learned a bunch of the crypto space then. And then crypto winter died out. And so I focused on my full-time job at Verizon as a solutions engineer. I ended up becoming a senior. And that's when I found NFTs roughly around like 2020, I want to say, like 2019, tail end, where, there was a really incredible product by Dapper Labs, not CryptoKitties, but NBA Top Shot. And Dapper Labs, for those of you guys that don't know, they help streamline onboard a lot of Web 2 people into Web 3. Before NFTs, like Web 3, it didn't mean anything to me. Now I'm getting more of a sense as to what Web3 actually is because I'm NFT native. So I started off through Top Shot. I do remember a CryptoKitty being sold in auction at the Ethereal conference that Consensus had hosted in 2018 for $117,000. That was the first NFT I've ever seen. And I thought to myself, what the hell is this thing? I didn't get it, nor did I take the time to understand it. That was the top of CryptoKitties, by the way, so that person totally smoked themselves. But Dapper Labs, again, onboarded a lot of people like myself and my community, Metaverse HQ, into NFTs. And so that's how I started. I got into Top Shot, and I watched my portfolio sort of, like everyone that got into Top Shot, portfolio rose and rose and rose because there's so much more demand than there was supply. And then Dapper Labs was very quick to correct that. And so all of our portfolios equalized to the market and stumbled my way onto the Ethereum blockchain, where I went on to invest in projects like Zedrun, Planar and Gaming. Because I'm a gamer, I like the idea of skins as NFTs, of being able to have the in-game currency be a cryptocurrency. Like all these things allured me. And I found actually the community of Metaverse HQ at the time, it was just simply a private Discord. The founder of Metaverse HQ, he was creating content around the office hours of Top Shot. So for those of you that don't know, every Thursday, NBA Top Shot would have like a community office hours, and Jake would write down notes of what was going on, what was the information everyone needed to know, publish it on Twitter. That's how I found him, and I wanted to be part of Metaverse HQ. And so I was let in. I was creating content at the time. I wasn't that much of a DJ. I was still learning the ways of how to trade NFTs on Ethereum. I held a Bored Ape. I bought one at 0.4. I was part of the Gutter Cat gang, all the OG like communities that formed during those early times. I was just part of this community called Metaverse HQ that was like sharing information, and it was the place to talk about NFTs with other people that were in the space. And then, we had a token sale around July of last year, so over a year ago. We were the first one of the first NFT gated communities, and we just happened to revolve around NFT trading. It wasn't a PFP or anything. And today we've grown into a massive, sprawling organization, over 200 partnerships, 8 figures of profits brought to Metaverse HQ and the community, tons of co-branded Metaverse HQ assets in different Planar and games. The staff is all homegrown Metaverse HQ. Our alumni network consists of Zeneca, Dingaling, people incredibly massive in the space today. We've had our hand in helping accelerate some of the best Web3 talent and the best Web3 products. You might have heard of Blur. That was a recent acceleration of ours. Now the number one marketplace and NFT aggregator on Ethereum, which is the place to be. And yeah, we started off as a humble community, and we definitely still are. And our 2023 mint is coming up. And yeah, we've just been making the rounds. That's where I was, and here's where I am today. And everything in between, what I like to pride myself on, Jan, is my ability to, again, understand the market very well. I think when it comes from a point of trading and investing NFTs, the allure of turning 1 ETH into 10 or 1 ETH into 100, right? We came from that place. Everyone in staff were some of the biggest degenerates in the NFT space. And you don't have to take it from me. Go to the blockchain, right? You'll see the P&Ls. a lot of people in Metaverse HQ are the biggest whales in the NFT space. They've done the most volume. They're the smartest and best to do it. And we try to lean on that as far as like education is concerned, giving that education, that sync to our members, to newcomers in the space. That's why our 2023 Mint is really important. We want to bring in the new infusion, the new class, the new hungry people. But at the end of the day, right, that's what we do best is we just keep each other honest. Our community has become a family. We're a soundboard. We're much more than just people online hiding behind PFPs. We've had many events all across New York and LA and Miami and many opportunities to meet each other. So at this point, again, coming from a place of having been a full-time trader, having turned an insane amount of profit, we're here to continue to not just help others learn how to do it, but also have a hand in accelerating and incubating the best product in Web3 and having a hand in shaping Web3 now. It's been such a blessing to be here.
No, man, I love it. And I want to get into all of that because I think there's just so many things to unpack here. But before I start asking about Metaverse HQ, what you guys are planning to do, what you guys are doing already, I just want to kind of get your sense. Like you mentioned that CryptoKitties, right? That was one of the things that kind of caught your attention. And so it's actually very interesting to me that not many people really talk about it. You know, everybody's talking about CryptoPunks and all of these different projects that are basically going to become like the historical moment for NFTs, even though, let's say, CryptoKitties were kind of the first ones, right, in a sense, or one of the first ones. How do you see the historical value of CryptoKitties? Because yes, I mean, they had a different mechanics, obviously, than CryptoPunks. It wasn't capped. You could breed as many of them as you could, etc. But do you see any value in CryptoKitties moving forward, or you think it's just going to kind of disappear?
So I think CryptoKitties is just context, right? Historical context, meaning it's hard to appreciate where we've been. And I think it's easy to take a look at a company like Dapper Labs, especially because they're really well known for Top Shot, right? And less CryptoKitties. It's really easy to look at that company and say, hey, I feel like slighted, or how do I put this, disappointed because of how the Top Shot product went out. But Dapper Labs is quite innovative. They have a multitude of products. They invest in a lot of products. They have their own protocol called Flow. And so there's a lot happening behind the scenes where, again, it's easy to point fingers and say, hey, you ruined my favorite platform ever and what brought me into NFTs, and like, I hate you. Trust me, I've done a lot of that. But also, if you take a look at what Dapper Labs has done, right, they're the reason NFTs exist. Like, they really are. They on-ramped everyone through Top Shot, big majority. And even years before that, they created CryptoKitties, really the first use case of like a game on Ethereum where you could buy, sell, and trade digital assets called CryptoKitties. You can breed them. You can create more, right? They're really good at increasing supply. Top Shot is, or Dapper Labs is. And so, yeah, CryptoKitties, it's like a use case. It's almost like you point, if there's like a history book of NFTs, you're going to look at CryptoKitties, you say, well, those were OG. Does that mean they're a good investment? I'd argue probably not. But that's not to say that we can't appreciate where we are and how far we've come. And all you have to do is take a look at what CryptoKitties did.
Yeah, makes total sense. Yeah, because I only hear a couple people in the space from time to time mention CryptoKitties in this context of like how this actually started. But right now, when you look at the whales or like the people that are actually, you know, looking at the long-term investments, nobody really mentions that name. Everybody mentions CryptoPunks and all the other projects, be it art blocks, etc., that are kind of like going to stay relevant for ages, for decades, or maybe even centuries moving forward. But no, this is awesome. I actually share the same kind of perspective. But man, I think what's more interesting here about this conversation is what you guys are doing with Metaverse HQ. So do I get it right, based on what you mentioned, that you basically started as kind of a small community, kind of like an alpha group, sharing different insights and sharing content about NFTs, what others are doing, but now you're evolving into sort of an incubator of different products and even, let's say, people and talent within the space, right? So can you talk a little bit more about that and what is kind of the plan for 2023? Because now you're kind of opening this community, or you're building this network, you're accepting applications of people that are building in the space. So what is the infrastructure that you want to build around this community moving forward in 2023?
Yeah, that's a very solid question, right? I think in order to know where we're going, you have to understand where we've been. We've always been like literally one of the best communities, homegrown NFT communities focused around NFT investing, trading, minting, flipping. And that's where we started, right? We would just share our conviction on projects, on what we might consider to be a good investment. Maybe it's a good investment because it's a really good use case. Maybe it's a good investment because the team is really incredible. I think when it comes to, again, where we're going, that's always going to be the case, right? We're always going to be a community focused on just like empowering ourselves, and education's always been a big part of that, sharing that information, getting that deep dive, that sort of brain sync, that mastermind group together. Low supply, right? Very exclusive. We had 1,500 keys. We're now actually bringing that down to 1,200 for our 2023 mint, because we want to, again, a really engaging environment for not just our OG members, but for our new ones too. And yeah, like you said, we're focused on incubating talent, right? So we were all had very low ETH bags once upon a time. And we hadn't had a real sense of conviction because we didn't have context. We didn't know what the best tools were to use and how. And so today, there's very much a lot of vantage points where Metaverse HQ, the community is still very much thriving, and incubating the best talent will always be our really core focus. Understanding the community as a value input, right? Our community of not just investors, but power users, especially when it comes to helping platforms like Blur, helping platforms like LooksRare, Degen Mint go to market in a really meaningful way. What does it mean to be meaningful? It means have a good product fit. It means you have the core user base, right? They're really engaged right off the bat. It means you have a fantastic go-to-market marketing strategy. All of these things that really make product worth looking into, right? Our community is at the forefront of every partnership that we might consider, every acceleration of a product that we might consider. We're always thinking about, hey, will this empower them, right? Well, let's take a really great use case, right? Blur is probably the best use case that we can use because it's really recent. Blur is now the #1 NFT marketplace and #1 aggregator on the Ethereum blockchain. They just launched 10 days ago, right? Something like that. But, everyone's just finding out about Blur right now. And Blur had a very successful airdrop, as you know, right? They had a very successful means to launch where, hey, we're public. You can check how many crates you've earned based on the 6 months of NFT trading you've done over the past 6 months. And it was really that was really exciting, right? To be able to open the packages. That's what's called a vampire attack. I know it's really weird how they call it that, but that's what it is. It's essentially identifying which users are trading NFTs and targeting them in a really specific way. When they did that 10 days ago, guess what? The conversation was more revolved around how good the platform is. And we've known about Blur. We were the first onboarded users on Blur, and we've been onboarded since June. So that's, again, another great identifying the value adds, right? What's the value proposition for Blur? Well, guess what? They get to dog feed their product in a really meaningful way with the most engaged and dedicated Web3 user base imaginable, where you get your product, really good product fit. You get exposure. Guess what? We also bring in our network, right? We have a ton of networks. You can imagine people in Metaverse HQ, they go and create their own groups, their own communities, bring those in. And so it was really just a beautiful 3 to 4 months of hard activation, getting the founder, Pac-Man, into Metaverse HQ, doing demos for MEHQ, onboarding members, creating a feedback loop with our community, getting the product where it needed to be. We're finally, again, 10 days ago, they launched, and now they're the #1 leading marketplace. Why didn't Coinbase have the same impact, right? Why didn't Binance NFTs have the same impact? Well, I'd argue Coinbase, they really failed to understand who their consumers were. And what we do best is we help bring products to market in a really meaningful way. That might be the value input of a partner, but guess what? For Metaverse HQ members, what was our benefit for helping, right? Think about this. Well, we get early exclusive access to one of the most competitive tools in terms of listing and trading, right? Something that we do, a lot of our members do day in, day out, and they're the best to do it. Competitive edge, #1. #2, Blur also offered anyone that was part of the private beta access will receive our own crate, right? Our own airdrop specific to just us, right? That's great value for our members. And then #3, Blur even offered, when we were having conversations with Pac-Man, the founder of Blur, he goes, hey, we'll offer the top 200 users of the beta private token allocation. So the best thing about Blur, backed by Paradigm, by the way, Paradigm, probably top web3 VC and just overall like great partner to have. They're crypto DeFi native. The beautiful thing about Blur was they opened up the private token round. For those of you that don't know, it's similar. I don't want to say it's like an IPO, but it's similar in that there's a valuation on the company and you're selling tokens at a certain strike price that have not yet been created or initialized. These tokens will have utility. You don't know what the utility really is going to be, but you do understand a sense of what the valuation is, the supply. We knew right off the bat that they were going to offer their best, like most engaged beta users access to that token allocation, which by the way, like if you've never been in a token allocation before, this is where the real cook is. It's fun to trade JPEGs, but imagine like, again, giving people, it's the whole analogy of like the pickaxes, right? Instead of hunting for gold, you sell the pickaxes. It's sort of similar in that sense. We just knew if we were the first users onboarded, then most likely our community will also get to feast on that allocation. And sure enough, it was just a very fruitful endeavor with Blur. And it's been a really beautiful moment for Metaverse HQ, for Blur, for Web3 to be able to bring a product to market this meaningful. Big shout out again to the Blur team and to Paradigm and to everyone else that helped, all the communities that onboarded after us. Really successful product launch. And this is how all products, honestly, in Web3 should launch.
I understand that this was more kind of like a partnership, right? That you and your community benefited in certain way. But is this something that you guys are working on to standardize somehow and maybe create this kind of accelerator program that you're going to even invest into companies? You're going to take some sort of equity stake in those companies that you help incubate, et cetera, kind of become like the YC for Web3. Is this the direction you're going, or is it still going to be more kind of like a community driven stuff?
I mean, you tell me, right? That acceleration was incredibly community driven. It only makes sense if the value inputs align. If it was a dog shit product, we would not invest our community into it. We definitely would not invest our financial backing into it. There are only certain use cases in which it's a perfect fit like Blur. It's a perfect fit like DGen Mint. And yeah, as far as if we're going to go look into a more standardized process of that model, YC of Web3, I mean, you said it, not me, right?
I'm asking because I see more and more communities with a similar idea popping up. There is this one that somebody just sent me like a couple days ago. I don't have the name in front of me, but basically what they're doing, they're launching an NFT. And as part of the NFT, they're kind of giving access to some pre-ICO deal flow as well, like private sale deal flow in different companies. They're kind of building a community around that. And so it feels similar to what you guys did, right? Even though you probably didn't do it in terms of like calling yourselves that, but because you have the leverage, you have the community, you have the understanding, and you can actually help these products to launch, you basically can do exactly the same thing and maybe much better than everybody else. That's why I'm asking if you guys are going in that direction to actually become that platform.
I think people that are really paying attention can see where the upside with a company like Metaverse HQ is. I would say that you're someone that's definitely fucking paying attention. I know the company that you're talking about, VentureX. We understand the landscape very well. And we know, I'll put it this way, we know what we do the best. We know where our lane is, right? And again, for us, the community are like core power users, members of this exclusive thing that we've created. All I've like had a hand in. They will always be first and foremost. And that value input is number one for us. We wake up every day, me and the rest of staff wake up every day thinking, how are we going to cook for Metaverse HQ? Without giving you too much alpha, I'll leave it at that. You're paying attention.
That's awesome, man. And I want to go deeper into building a community in Web3, right? Because I come from a community background in Web2. I was actually working with some of the largest communities in the world when it comes to entrepreneurship, hosting different events, online, offline. I don't know if you have heard about companies like Startup Grind, Techstars, Startup Weekend, etc. I was actually working with some of them for years in Asia and helping them to set up the structure for scaling their communities. And so I would say that I know one or two things about community building. And obviously Web3, basically everybody talks about community, like community number one. We need to take care of our community. We need to build a community. I do believe that in the past, many people kind of took it the wrong way though. Building community through just incentivizing them, giving them some giveaways and doing these campaigns and focusing on the vanity metrics, which is like, hey, how many followers we have on Twitter, right? But that ultimately doesn't really matter. And so how you see, or what are some of the, let's say, even tips or the lessons learned that you learned from building Metaverse HQ to actually have this super strong community that really cares about one another within the community and even the projects that you bring in, that they actually get on board and get behind, even though maybe Blur is a brand now, but when they just got started, they were not, right? And so how do you kind of manage this within the community to make sure that everybody is on the same page and pulling for the same thing?
I think with Blur, right, you're thinking about how our community will react to early access, right? Because again, the value input with someone that's going to market is they want to make sure they have good product fit, meaningful user base, engagement, all that stuff, right? The numbers. But in a meaningful way, we're thinking because we are the community, because we are the investors, creators, builders, the people in the network, we know what a good product feels like and looks like. Mind you, a lot of us are like still working full time in Web2, not me, obviously, but we all have that sense of what a good product looks like because we've used every product and we have a sense of what a good product feels like, what a new innovative feature feels like, right? And we have these different like sub communities to sort of get sentiment around. And so for us, again, like Blur was a really big conviction play. When I caught that early, big shout out to not Katarina, by the way. She was the one that connected us to Pac-Man. But when my sourcing team, we have a dedicated sourcing team, right? So I don't want to give myself all the credit. We have a team that basically takes meetings with new upcoming products to see, hey, is this like a competitive edge for Metaverse HQ? Do we want to get access to this thing, right? When we caught Blur, we knew very early that, hey, this is different. It's faster, it's cleaner, it's better. The team is cracked. It basically just flew through with flying colors through our due diligence. And this was something where we knew the community would find a lot of value, again, in those 3 points that I mentioned, where it just made sense. But like, mind you, a lot of people do use the word community, right? Like, how do we use community? How do I see it? I see Metaverse HQ as the core, like, engaged power users of Web3, the zeitgeist of Web3, right? The Ivy League of Web3, where we are Web3. We decide what the space is going to look like. We have a hand in what the space is going to look like. And we are a core exclusive group of individuals. A lot of other communities form around 10K PFP collections, right? 10,000 NFTs, you get access to the Discord. We have a small knit community, and that's why we even made it smaller to 1,200 NFTs, because we want to continue to have it really engaging, meaningful experiences in HQ that you can't find anywhere else. And that's what's very important, right? We don't want to dilute that value of just real engagement, the specific type of engagement that we want, which is the real boots on the ground, Web3 users, builders, interfacing back and forth with each other. That stuff is so important. And a lot of the best communities that engage meaningfully, that have a common goal, not just, oh, I'm a holder of this collection, let's go into the Discord. Like we have a common goal, right? We have a common itch to be participants, active participants in how the space evolves. And through that, it's very easy to understand that value input and what our community might think is a really good fit for them. So again, a lot of people use the term community lightly. Ours is more of like exclusive, niched, like membership based. We say Ivy League because it's very hard to get into college. We're incredibly gated. Our token price is not cheap, and we know that, but we do our best to try to get people in that are brand new, that are yearning for this experience, and will find a lot of value once they have access to it, and will engage quite highly and get out of Metaverse HQ what they intended to find in Web3. And I think building something like this, we have an insane alumni network. Again, like I mentioned, some of the builders and founders that have gone on to HQ and gone on to build other things. I don't care if they leave Metaverse HQ. I don't care if they sell our token, right? Like the idea is that you came in at HQ, you learned something, you met somebody, met a couple people, maybe they're your founding team, and you went on similar to Techstars, right? You brought up Techstars, similar to YC, where, you then go on to build the next great thing, right? But you'll always know where home is. You'll always feel appreciative for who brought you there to dance, and HQ is that place all the time, and it always will be.
Yeah, man. And it's the same for me. Metaverse HQ was my first ever NFT because, I told you, Trevor, right? Trevor Owens is my very good friend. And he's basically the guy. Man, I remember that moment. He was holding my hand when I bought my first ETH and set up my MetaMask. And he was like, hey, send it to this address, do this. And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm going to lose it all. Like, what the fuck is this? So he was there on Zoom call holding my hand, and he was helping me to figure out how to place the first wrapped ETH offer on Metaverse HQ key and actually get it off secondary, So I totally share what you just described, and not because I was one of those examples, but I actually love the fact that you guys are starting from small community, right? Because from my experience doing different things in different industries and working with different communities, I believe that it's always easier to scale from smaller stuff when you already know what your value is, what your mission is, like what the people can create together or what are they excited for. Because once you have this core group of people that are passionate about something, it's much easier to go and maybe create like a 10x cheaper kind of collection or share the materials broadly, etc. It's much easier to do it that way rather than the other way around, because it's just, I've never really seen the other way around working very well sustainably. I love it.
Yeah, this is alpha to me. I'm happy you're part of HQ. I hope you took something away. It's cool to be full circle.
Do you have any examples of experiments, something that you guys did within the community in terms of the management, in terms of really getting these kinds of projects on board at the very beginning or even now? Like, are there any things that you could share with everyone, especially if they're interested in doing something on their own in terms of building a community or really figuring out the value proposition or getting attention of the people that really matter in the space? Like, can you talk about some experiments or some things that you have done that worked very well in terms of getting attention?
The best advice I can give is maybe it's two things, right? When you're building a community or you're building something meaningful that centers around a group of individuals, is if you're building something exciting and meaningful, people are going to reach out. And people are going to say, hey, I want to work for you. It's sort of like that scene in like Wolf of Wall Street, right? Where Jonah Hill is like, I quit my job and work for you, right? Show me a check for $70,000. And then literally the next scene, he's like quitting his job. When you find the Jonah Hill, right, from what you're doing, when you source that kind of talent, there's something to be said about that, because everyone in Metaverse HQ came from our community and like sort of like hit up management, hit up the execs like Poop, Jake. In my case, I hit Jake up and said, hey, I'd love to get more involved, more ingrained, and just help you guys out, right? I don't care what it is I do. I just know that I'm here. I want to build. Never, ever take that lightly. Those are the people that will really fight for you. Those are the people that will really want to bring value. And you might not necessarily know how to fit them in. You might not necessarily know, like, if you even have work to give them. But that sort of passion for what you're building and someone that wants to contribute to that vision, they share it. You should absolutely try to find a way to onboard them. Jacob Meyer, our head of marketing. I mean, mind you, I was someone that was just a member as well. I probably bought in like similar to you. And I just hit up Jake and I was like, the founder of Metaverse HQ. And I was like, hey, can I help you in any way, right? I can do this. They even offered ways I can help. He said, you're on board. Great. So I started as a mod for Metaverse HQ, which is like hilarious because I'm the worst mod ever. They definitely like saw upside elsewhere for sure. I definitely was not the best fit. But, you have entry-level positions where you can onboard people, give people a chance to get their beak wet and see how they perform, right? So that's number one. Jacob Meyer is another one, right? Jacob Meyer are now head of marketing and, part of the core team. He just DM'd me, Jake, and Poop like the week before Thanksgiving, begging for an internship or whatever. And we were like, what does an internship even mean? And like, fuck it. Like, let's just get him on. Like, who cares? He's so excited. And like, it turns out Jacob has helped spearhead activations and collaborations, 200 of them to be exact, taken every meeting, helped build the process. There's a lot of people along the way that also helped build it that have now gone on to build great things like KPRverse, for instance. Shout out to Chrissy, who's advising for that project. KPRverse is the leading project today. But again, it took a village. And if you're doing something really exciting, you're going to excite people because of that. Give them a way to get on board. And number two, maybe this is 1A. Maybe that was 1A. 1B is if they're not a good fit, you're probably using them incorrectly, right? So if they're just so enthused and excited, but you put them like in one place and they're just not a good fit, maybe that excitement can best translate somewhere else. And I'll give you a great example. Silva Serger, Metaverse HQ, staff member now, first a contributor, OG of Metaverse HQ. Silva Serger, he was so excited to work with us and we had him on the collaborations activations team. This is the team that sources deal flow for Metaverse HQ, gets allocation in whitelist spot, and basically is just like the catch-all pipeline. It was not a good fit, right? So it just wasn't good. I remember Jacob and I going, oh, Silva's like, it's just something's not right. Like he's so excited and enthused, but just something, he's not closing deals, whatever the case might be. we like fired him essentially, Silva, from the collabs. You're like, listen, this is not a good fit. But shout out to Poopaloop, who is one of the executives, basically chief staff, president of Metaverse HQ, now spearheads content, oversees all of our content division. He was like, wait, I see value in Silva. He'll be a great fit for content. And now Silva Surger is one of the most goated people on our content team. He actually helped scale the content division and really curate really awesome private content offering for our members through daily recaps, and then obviously some public facing stuff, MVHQ magazine, this and that. So again, if people are coming up to you, they want to be a part of the act, get them in. If you don't find them a good fit right away, you're probably using them wrong. That's like I would say like that's my biggest tip ever, right? Because if you're doing something really meaningful that you believe in yourself, ideally other people are going to believe in it too. Get those other people in and make sure they're cooking alongside you. It's going to be a big kitchen.
100%, man, because it's all about the passion and attitude, right? Like the other things can be learned, right? And we're so early in the space that like you cannot even say that one person is an expert, right? Like that doesn't really exist. And so I fully appreciate this kind of attitude that you guys have. Just in terms of the operation, so right now, how many people do you guys have? How many people full-time and how many people part-time? Because like I feel like it takes a village, you mentioned it yourself, to manage this thing. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have essentially 11 full-time, 6 part-time, and then we have like over a dozen contributors. The different forms of compensation in Metaverse HQ, there is obviously a lot of perks that we can garner. We retain 10% of all whitelist allocations, so we're able to use that very creatively for a multitude of different teams. I'd like to break it down. The staff I'd break down into 3 different pillars because that's how Metaverse HQ is broken down. You have community-facing resources, right? So this is your community manager. This is basically your head moderator that oversees, and the moderators that oversee the entire community to make sure they run smooth, oiled, troubleshooting in real time. That might include being in voice chat a bunch. Shout out to Daddy Jinzo. We have a really robust team of OGs like Daddy Jinzo, Relic CK, who is top 10 trader on Ethereum NFTs for sure. Jake and Bake, who's the founder, he's still very much ingrained with the community. That's his focus. We've got AI the answer. We got a lot of THC, Top Hat Cat. We have some overlap. So the community facing resources, very important. Full and part-time there. That's literally the staple. We have the content division, mostly comprised of contributors, some full-time people. They focus on creating content, not just for our Metaverse HQ members privately, but also hosting, founding AMAs, and creating original content to blast to the masses, gives people some free alpha, a little bit of a taste of what happens in HQ. And then we have the activations pillar, right? So the activations team is, again, the team that sources deal flow for whitelist allocations for something that might be considered a high-end partnership like a Blur and activation acceleration. That team is particularly cracked. And now you're seeing, okay, community, content, activations, through and through together. What is this combined? That's Metaverse HQ, right? We're a well-oiled machine. There's a lot of overlap, a lot of brain sync happening. At the end of the day, we know what paths we're on. We know who we need to bug for what. And there's a lot of carving of new paths that simply just didn't exist. That's sort of the fun of being a startup, right? You have to be incredibly aware of just how much is not solid and concrete, right? Hey, go figure out and try it. But like while you're doing it, like write it down and make sure like we're maintaining or at least can like identify a process that is teachable and scalable. So that's really the idea with the staff. And that's how we're sort of segmented. And where we come and work together is obviously in a multitude of ways that is advantageous, not just for the community, not just for staff, but also for our partners too.
Nice. And so just one quick follow-up on this. All the people that joined you after, even yourself included, you mentioned that you also DM'd the founders and said, hey, I want to get involved. So are all the people that joined you now full-time or even part-time coming from the community directly? Or is there something outside?
We source directly from the community. Who better to know what we do than people that have been with us helping contribute to the community and build Metaverse HQ, like as a member. And yeah, an outsider just wouldn't get it. So usually if you don't hold our token, we don't even consider your job application. I don't know. We found a way to source talent within our ranks. Obviously, everyone else in the industry in Web3 has sourced talent from Metaverse HQ as well. If they're doing it, we're obviously we're going to have first dibs to the best talent in Web3, which we do. It's amazing because we've done it completely bootstrapped, no outsiders. Like you see not to take shots, but you see companies like Cool Cats take on outsiders to be like CEOs and stuff. It's like, well, what do they really know about Web3, right? Like, I don't know, right? I actually don't know. But I know if we have someone from staff brought up that's from HQ and we have their message history, we have their address on the blockchain, we know what kind of damage they've done, we know what project they've been to, we have their Twitter. Like, we know that's a really viable candidate. That's a top tier candidate. And for us, it's just worked in sourcing talent from our community. It's been such a blessing because, again, we all wake up with that same vision. And it's not like we just woke up today and decided to do it. We've always had it. And then when you finally hit the barrier of like, okay, I want to actually do something, like that's when we really activate our members to become staff and become greater than that.
Yeah. No, man, I love it. I mean, obviously, I think there is a value for huge companies to get outside talent when it comes to like operations, for instance, right? Because, many of these like Web3 startups, even Web3 NFT companies, I think what they struggle with, they don't struggle with understanding Web3, but they struggle with like, how do you actually build a machine in terms of operations, right? Because many of those founders may be very young. They haven't really built a huge company now. They have tens of millions of dollars in their treasury and they need to figure out how to scale it to actually onboard masses, right? So I understand the value in that, but at the same time, I love the spirit of Web3 because that's what you're doing, right? You're basically pulling out of your own community and that's how it should be. In Web3, it's basically community owned, or like the people that actually care, they should have the say in where it's going even. So I really like that. And man, so another question I want to go, maybe I have one or two more questions. Basically, now since you open the applications and you're talking with a lot of people and you said it's 1,200 people that will be joining the next cohort, right? Or the next mint, let's say.
Just to clarify, like it's 1,200 total supply, and everyone that holds a token today, you'll have guaranteed access to mint at 0.4 Ethereum, right? So again, entry level, really great. If all of the members end up minting, we're going to have zero supply, right? So that's the challenge that we're running into is we don't know how many applicants we can actually successfully like say yes to, because we just don't know how much will be left over for the application mint, which could be incredibly small at this point.
I do believe that not everyone will mint, to be honest. I mean, still like 1,400 people is quite a large number. We're in a bear market. And so I think it always happens with projects that not everybody mints. But I totally understand the challenge that you're trying to solve for. So anyways, the question still is the same here. So how do you go about selecting the best people? So do you have any specific process, criteria? Obviously, you're jumping on a call with everyone. So you're spending quite a lot of time on filtering through the applications. Can you speak a little bit to like, what are some of the key components that you decided to have in the application process that are just must have and you will never compromise on?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I'm happy to share some alpha there, right? We do have a rating system. We do have a 1 through 10 rating system. I'll give you some hints as to how you can be the best candidate. But again, we're sussing you out. You have to fill out an application on our website. We actually have an application on our website. This isn't some Google form. And once we have that information, every Sunday we look through all the applicants. And there's a checkbox when you fill out an application that says, do you want a one-on-one interview? If you do, if you're a good enough candidate, good enough meaning maybe you had some really thoughtful, meaningful answers and you fit a lot of qualities that we're looking for, like tech focused, builder focused, full-time trader, hungry, meaning like you're ambitious, you're young, you want to find a community that you fit in very well. You haven't found a community yet. If you come from another community, or if you come from trading group, an alpha community, or Web2 VC ventures, like you're in, if you bring something like new to the table, maybe you're legal, maybe you're a crypto lawyer, maybe you are, I don't know, an esports professional gamer, like those might be bonus points. At the end of the day, we try to offer one-on-one interviews with as many people that want one-on-one interviews as possible. Your intention to have a one-on-one interview is already good enough. If you make that one-on-one interview, that's bonus points. And if you have a really great interview, if you ask really good questions, we're going to consider that highly. We have a full-on rap sheet for each single interview that we all go through and cover, and we say yes or no. That's really our process. It's a lot more, I would say right now, like a lot of people do applications, like KPRverse does one, Momentum did one. For us, because we know we have such a small pool, of people that can mint. We want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence, going above and beyond to not just curate the members that we're bringing in, but also make sure the people that are interested in joining feel accommodated, have their questions answered, and really like know what it is that we're about. That's why the one-on-one interviews there. No one else is doing that, by the way. I just like to point out, no one else is taking the time.
It takes time, man, right? It takes resources. Like, I don't know how many applications you have, and obviously we don't have to mention those numbers, but even if you have like 100, 200 people, which I believe like that's the minimum that you guys gonna have with all the presence that you have all over the world, it's just crazy amount of hours that you need to put in, right? So obviously not many people will do that.
Thank you for appreciating that. Yes. A lot of these meetings, bro, a lot of these calls, they're only supposed to be 10 minutes. They end up being 30. So they end up being an hour. Like you end up talking with a hacker that hacked North Korea or some shit. That's also the blessing. We get to understand as a staff, hey, what is the litmus test? How are people from the outside viewing what Metaverse HQ, our members, our content, what we display publicly? How are they viewing that? And we can get a sense of what that POV might look like based on the questions they're asking. And it just gives us a lot of conviction in what we're doing too. Like another big, I guess, like, I don't want to say rule of ours, but definitely advice that has helped us time and time again is to stay in our lane and know our frame. This might be as an investor, but more so as a builder, right? Know your frame. It's very easy to look at another successful project, team, community, platform, solution and say, oh, like we're missing the boat because we didn't do that. Great ideas come from all over the Web3 realm. I've been inspired by so many communities. I've been inspired by like NFT Llama, obviously the Bored Apes, a lot of communities that do a lot of great shit. And it's very easy if you're a builder to think, oh, I need to like steer course. Don't be reactive, right? Have conviction in what you're building. You're building it for a reason. And if you just steer course and just maintain your frame, you're not playing in someone else's ball game. You're actually creating something entirely brand new where, again, you move away from being branded this or that, or you move away from pigeonholing yourself. You're really just being proactive, and the ideas that you're implementing are incredibly genuine and not forced or reactionary to one or the other. So again, when it comes to the application process, it's just been nice to feel some sort of validation and recognition. We've been doing that forever. Since we've been around forever, we've seen so many great ideas and we've felt so much FOMO. Like, oh, that's a great idea. I wish we thought of that. Oh, look at this. Like these guys, they're like doing so well. It's okay. Just take a breather. You're amazing. You're incredible. Focus on that. You know what I'm saying?
Totally agree, right? Because if you just follow what other people are doing, there is no innovation. And obviously that could work in a short term. Like you see so many of these like degen mints, like they're just copying one project after another. And yeah, maybe some people are going to make a little bit of money in a short term, but they're definitely not going to have an impact on the space, right? Because they're just copying somebody. And so I 100% agree. You should have a conviction. You can definitely observe what others are doing. You can learn. You can implement certain ideas that you think are great. But ultimately, if you really want to have an impact on the space, you should come up with something that is you and maybe cater to specific group of people and grow from there, right? So I 100% agree with that. I think I have one last question before I let you go. I would be really curious because you guys see this. You have been, as you mentioned, around forever, even though it has been 2 years, which is pretty funny when we talk about forever. But you have been in Discords, you have been part of these communities. You also like talk with a lot of these builders, and you even mentioned that you're onboarding these tech talents into your community now. So where do you see the Web3 space going, especially in terms of the community tools, management tools, etc.? Because I hear many people, they hate Discord, yet everybody's using it because there is no real alternative. Do you guys see that it's going to evolve? Do you guys want to contribute to that by building certain other tools that are much better and much more Web3 native? How do you see this space of community management evolving in Web3?
If you are building something in Web2 and you're looking to receive funding for it, right? Seed round or what have you. Like it takes X amount of time to build it. As an investor in that seed round, you might consider, hey, I'm going to see my exit in 3 to 7 years, right? That's usually the standard in Web2 investing. And from a building standpoint, right, it takes time to build. It takes a lot of resources. In Web3, like you can have a great product fit one day, and then 6 months from now, hey, guess what? There's a more competitive product or a new use case that's a lot more interesting or engaging. You just lost steam, right? So these are important things to consider when you are building a Web3. And I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. I think we're going to keep seeing use case after use case after use case until there's like finally mass adoption. And then what happens is there's mass consolidation, like Amazon and Facebook, like now Meta has done, right? You're going to see that. But right now we're sort of in like the post.com bubble where you have all these incredible use cases and projects, and you might have all these incredible entries and exits, but there is not yet that like single behemoth. And that should give everyone like really, that should be a very exciting thing, because that means like anyone with a great idea, with an incredible product fit, can make an impact. Doesn't need to be a long-term impact, like maybe, right? But from a Web2 perspective, like people are thinking longer. But from a Web3 perspective, think about it. Like if you had invested in LooksRare, right? You know, the NFT marketplace, if you invested in the token round, that vesting schedule was 6 months full unlock, right? So as a Web2 investor, oh my God, you can make your return in 6 months. And guess what? That returns 14x. Like what? That kind of investment doesn't exist in Web2, especially not at like the seed. So it's like, if you think about it from a Web3 perspective, because the cycles in which like people are now thinking are so small and tiny, it's actually really a lot more fun and exciting in that sense, where it doesn't need to be a product fit forever. It could be a really great use case and serve its purpose, and then there will be the next thing. Should you always think like that as a builder? Hell no. Right? The concept of being a founder in Web2, having to be nimble and being like sort of flexible in terms of what your product fit actually is. In Web3, it's like that, like squared, right? So there's a lot of exciting opportunities as a builder in Web3, and especially as an investor, right? What you should be thinking about again is, what is a great product that fits the market today and maybe over the next 3-6 months, a year? And then what is the next product going to look like? You should always be like, your cycles in which you're investing are incredibly shorter, because again, there's just so much use cases to tackle before we get to mass consolidation. And that's why I'm really excited as an investor, as someone building in the space and sort of helping guide, not just like core, like member-based power users, but really having a hand in shaping Web3, not just from an investment standpoint, but from a go-into-market and really just being a participant, right? An active participant in this as well. It's all so exciting.
Mitch, awesome, man. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you guys. I think what you're building is amazing. I'm definitely super bullish. I'm not financial advice or anything like that, but I'm a big believer in the fact that Web3 needs more like real solid communities, especially given the fact that there is so many scams and there's just so many of these problems that basically discourage a lot of people. And so if you have a bunch of solid communities that really care about their users, educate them, you know, give them means and ways to actually participate, and not only to make money, but to actually have the impact on the space, as you mentioned, I think that's extremely important in these early stages. And so you guys are certainly leading the way. And so I'm super appreciative as somebody coming into the space a little bit later than most of the people that are in the space today. But I'm super excited for what you're building. Would love to support in any way possible, and just want to stay in touch, man.
Thank you, bro. The gratitude is not just shared with you, it's shared with everyone that made Metaverse HQ happen, right? Not just our members, our staff, our partners, everyone that's believed in us and continues to work with us. This was essentially a social experiment turned into literally one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me. And I know a lot of people share that sentiment. And every single day I'm grateful. I feel gratitude. I don't take this position lightly. I don't take what we built lightly and where we're going lightly at all. And at the same time, it's just been so much fun. I can do this forever. So thank you for having me, Jan, for helping us share more of our story. We don't do that enough. We're always in our Discord, sort of talking with each other. It's been really fun. I'm really excited for you as well. Builders Podcast, shout out, hosting Metaverse HQ, and looking forward to it, man.
Love it, man. Thanks, Mitch.
All right. Cheers, brother.